Hi everyone, this video is going to go through the notes on adding and subtracting fractions, so please make note of the examples in this into your notebook, and also then feel free to take your time going through the video, pause it if you need to take a second to write some notes, and then press play when you're ready. So if we're looking at fractions then, and adding and subtracting them, we need them to have the same or the common denominator in order to be able to add or subtract them. Remember that we said from last lesson that the denominator is the number that's on the bottom of the fraction. So in this case, if I had, say, 1/4 and 3/4, they both have that same common denominator there because they have the same number on the bottom of the fraction. If that's the case, then we can follow this second step here and just add or subtract the numerators, which is the numbers on top. So I've just got a couple of examples for us to get started. For question 1, it says complete the following, and it also asks us to simplify our answers wherever possible. So the first example is what I just drew up for us. So we've got 1/4 plus 3/4. They both have 1/4 as a denominator, so that's the bottom of my fraction. And then if I add the top, 1 plus 3 also equals 4. So I'm left with 4/4. Now, because this asks for me to simplify the fraction, any number divided by itself does equal 1. So I'm going to give my final answer here as 1. If I look at B, it's a subtraction. I've got 3/7 minus 2/7. Again, the denominators are the same for us, so I can solve this straight away. And 3 minus 2 is 1, so my answer is 1/7. With C, I've got 6/7 plus 2/7, so I can add them together. 6 plus 2 gives me 8/7, and if we remember from last lesson, this is an improper fraction because the number on top is larger than the number on the bottom. So if I'm simplifying my answers, I should rewrite this as a mixed number, and 7 goes into 8 one time, with 1/7 left over. So my mixed number answer would be 1 and 1/7. Finally for D, 5, 6 minus 3, 6. I will have 6ths as my denominator, and 5 minus 3 is 2. Now you might notice that both of these are positive numbers. They're both divisible by 2, and so I can actually simplify this to be a third here. So that's what I should do when simplifying. We ended up with a mixed number answer there in C, but we might actually have some fractions where we're working with mixed numbers the entire time. And so what we can do is we can add or subtract the whole number that's at the start of that mixed number, and then work with the actual fraction separately as well. So if we look at example A here, I've got 1 and 3/5 plus 2 and 1/5. And so I can consider this being 1 plus 2 plus 3/5, oh sorry, my pen's gone a bit funny here, plus 3/5 plus 1/5. Now, no, you don't have to rewrite it like that every time, but just to make the point here. So if I add those whole numbers at the start first, 1 plus 2 gives me 3, and then 3/5 plus 1/5, they're both fifths, and 3 plus 1 gives me 4, so my final answer would be 3 and 4/5. I do the same thing with subtracting here. If I just focus at the numbers on the front, 3 minus 2 gives me 1, and then I've got 5/6 minus 1/6, so 5 minus 1 gives me 4. And you might notice then that both of them are divisible by 2, and so 4 divided by 2 is 2, and 6 divided by 2 is 3. So my final simplified answer is 1 and 2/3 there. If I look down at C now, again, if I do the 2 plus 4 first, I'm left with 6, and then I've got 3/4 plus 2/4, they're both quarters, and 3 plus 2 gives me 5. Now I might notice there that that again is an improper fraction, and so I can actually convert that to be a mixed number. So this is now like saying 6 plus 1 and 1/4. Because 4 goes into 5 one times, and I'm left with 1/4 left over. In that case then, I would add that 1 to the 6 as well, so I'm actually left here with 7 and 1/4 being my final answer. And lastly, if I look at D, what I have here is 5 1/5 minus 2 2/5. Now if I do 5 minus 2, that leaves me with 3, but you might notice, let's write that 3 first of all. When I then do the 1/5 minus 2/5, I'm left with a fifth, but 1 minus 2 gives me -1. And so what this is actually saying is it's 3 minus another little fifth. So I'm going to have 2 wholes then, but that last whole number is 5/5 minus 1/5. So my final answer is going to be 2 4/5. The final skill for us in this exercise is talking about things having common denominators. So I said at the start that we need to have the common denominator, so the same number on the bottom of the fractions, for us to be able to add or subtract them. If they are different, we need to make them the same. And in order to do this, we need to look for a common factor of the two denominators, or we can multiply the denominator of one fraction to the other. Once we've done that and we've got the fractions in terms of the same denominator, then we can add or subtract them and go from there. So if I look at example A, I've got 1/3 plus 1/4. We want to think about what 3 and 4 work together as if they multiply. So the lowest common denominator here is going to be 12 because both 3 and 4 multiply into 12. Now what I can do is when I cross multiply, I need to multiply this fraction on the left by the denominator that's on the right, and I need to multiply the top and the bottom of the fraction then by 4. What that means is this left fraction is now going to become 4, I might write it, 4 over 12, because 1 times 4 is 4, and 3 times 4 gives me 12. The right fraction needs to be multiplied by that 3 down the bottom of the left. And so I have to multiply the top and the bottom by 3, and I still have this addition sign in the middle. So this right fraction now, 1 times 3 is 3, and 4 times 3 gives me 12. I can see now that my fractions have both got 12 as the denominator, so now I can add them together exactly like we were doing before. So my final answer has 12 as a denominator, and 4 plus 3 gives me 7. Looking at example B, I need to do the same thing, and so 5 times 3 gives me 15 as my common denominator. And so what I'm going to do is I need to multiply the left fraction, top and bottom, by 3, and the right fraction, top and bottom, by 5. So from here now, the left fraction, 3 times 3 is 9, and 5 times 3 gives me 15. And on the right, 1 times 5 is 5, and 3 times 5 is 15. Now I've got both fractions with the same denominator, so I can put 15 on the bottom, and 9 minus 5 gives me 4, and they don't have any common factors there, so I can't simplify my answer any further. If we scroll down to C now, 5 and 6, the lowest common denominator over here is going to be 30 for me, and so I need to multiply the left fraction by 6, top and bottom, and the right fraction by 5 on the top and the bottom. 4 times 6 gives me 24, 5 times 6 gives me 30, 1 times 5 is 5, and 6 times 5 is 30, and so now I have 30 on the bottom of both fractions, and 24 plus 5 gives me 29. D then over here, 8 and 3, 8 times 3 gives me 24 as my lowest common denominator. I'm multiplying the left, top and bottom by 3, and the right, top and bottom by 8. 7 times 3 is 21, 8 times 3 is 24, 2 times 8 is 16, and 3 times 8 is 24. They now both got 24 on the bottom, and if I do 21 minus 16, I'm left with 5, so my final answer is 5 over 24. My last two examples here, I've got mixed numbers again, and I can think of them being separate to the rest of the fraction as well, but I still need to look at those common denominators to be able to add the fraction parts at the end. So the common denominators over here again are 15. So I need to times this by 5 and by 5, and here by 3 and by 3. I'm going to do the 2 and the 1 at the start. So I've got 3, and then I'm going to have 5 over 15 plus, and then I've got 2 times 3 is 6 over 15. And so now I've still got that 3 there. 5 plus 6 gives me 11. So I've got 3 and 11/15. And finally, for the right hand side with f over here, 5 times 4 gives me a common denominator of 20. Yes, I'm going to multiply the top over here by 4 and by 4, and over here by 5 and by 5. So I've got 2/16 over 20 minus 1. 3 times 5 is 15 over 20 again. If I multiply those numbers out the front, 2 minus 1 gives me 1, and then 16 minus 15 over 20 leaves me with 1/20, and so that will be my final answer here. What you need to do now is access the sheet that's on Classnet, and the PDF is called Working with Fractions Exercises. And when you open that up, 5.1 and 5.2 look at adding fractions, and for question 1 and question 2, you only have to do the questions that are in the left-hand side for both of them. So just work down the left-hand side, and then same thing with 5.3 and 5.4. With question 1 and 2, we're just answering those questions that are on the left-hand side for us. So that is what you need to be working on now for the rest of this lesson. Please make sure you get it finished in this hour. Thank you.